Ever wonder which weapons truly terrified people in the Wild West? The ones that made outlaws think twice, sheriffs tread carefully, and ordinary folks cross the street when they saw them? Forget the Hollywood duels and trick-shot cowboys. The real frontier was built on firepower that inspired fear for one reason. It worked. From pocket-sized pistols to battlefield rifles, these weren't props. They were the tools of survival, justice, and sometimes revenge. Today, we're counting down the 10 most feared weapons of the Old West, the guns and blades that earned their reputation not from legend, but from what they could actually do. And make sure you stick around for number 1, because it's the weapon that defined the entire era and changed the West forever. And if you've ever wondered how these frontier weapons evolved into the machines that changed the course of the 20th century, we've just launched a brand new channel called Brass and Blitz, where we dive deep into the real history of World War II, the weapons, battles, and untold stories that defined a new kind of warfare. There's a link in the description and pinned comment if you want to see how the West's 6 shooters evolved into the world's deadliest arsenal. Now back to the video. Number 10, the Derringer pistol. It wasn't the biggest gun in the West, but it might have been the most feared. The Derringer was the weapon of gamblers, thieves, and drifters who liked their odds close. Tiny enough to hide in a vest, a boot, or a lady's purse, it was the last thing you saw before everything went quiet. These pocket pistols were usually single or double-barreled weapons, firing .41 rimfire or .44 caliber rounds. They weren't built for accuracy. Their effective range was barely 10 to 20 feet. But at that distance, a single shot could be fatal. Weighing less than half a pound, a Derringer could be drawn and fired from concealment in an instant. They became notorious after John Wilkes Booth used a .44 Philadelphia Derringer to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. The murder turned a gentleman's pocket pistol into a national symbol of treachery. From that moment on, even the smallest gun could command fear. On the frontier, saloons and gambling halls were breeding grounds for quick tempers and quicker hands. A Derringer slipped into a sleeve or waistcoat pocket could decide a fight before it began. Riverboat gamblers, prostitutes, and politicians alike carried them for insurance. Hollywood rarely shows them because they lack the drama of a revolver. But in real life, they caused plenty. Many of the era's most shocking murders happened at point-blank range with one of these tiny pistols. Because in the Wild West, it wasn't always the biggest gun that made people nervous. It was the one you couldn't see. Number 9, the Bowie knife. The Bowie knife wasn't just a blade. It was a legend you could hold. Originating in the 1820s, it was made famous by Jim Bowie, the frontiersman whose massive knife turned a Mississippi duel into frontier folklore. His weapon, a long, heavy blade with a clipped point and crossguard, was designed for one thing: to end fights fast. Typical Bowie knives stretched 9 to 15 inches long, with a razor-sharp clip point for thrusting and a broad, heavy spine for slashing. Some weighed over a pound, giving each strike bone-breaking power. They were made by blacksmiths across the frontier, from Arkansas to Texas, and no two were exactly alike. By the 1840s and 50s, the Bowie had become the sidearm of choice for soldiers, riverboat gamblers, and outlaws. Before the Colt revolver reached mass production, a Bowie was the most fearsome thing you could bring to a fight. The Texas Rangers carried them in the Mexican-American War, and many Civil War soldiers tucked them alongside their muskets. The knife earned its brutal reputation in countless street fights and saloon brawls. A single slash could end a man's life, and everyone knew it. In New Orleans and along the Mississippi, Bowie killings became so common that cities began passing ordinances against carrying large fighting knives. Hollywood usually portrays the Bowie as a heroic blade, clean, shiny, a gentleman's tool. But in reality, it was the weapon of last resort, personal, bloody, and terrifying. When two men argued on the frontier and one reached beneath his coat, the flash of that curved steel was often enough to stop the fight cold. Because on the real frontier, you didn't have to fire a Bowie knife. You only had to show it. Number 8. The LeMat revolver. If one gun could make a man's blood run cold just by looking at it, it was the LeMat revolver, the monstrous two-barreled pistol of the frontier. Invented in the 1850s by Dr. Jean-Alexandre LeMat of New Orleans, this revolver was unlike anything else in the West. At first glance, it looked like a standard cap and ball sidearm. But beneath its 9-shot cylinder sat a second barrel, a 16-gauge shotgun. That meant one pull of the hammer could fire a .42 caliber bullet, and with a flick of a switch, the next shot could unleash a blast of buckshot. Each LeMat weighed nearly 3.5 pounds, heavy, awkward, and devastating up close. Confederate cavalry officers prized it during the Civil War, calling it the gun with a surprise. One moment you were facing a revolver, the next a shotgun blast. Because it was complex and expensive to produce, only a few thousand were ever made. But its reputation spread far beyond its numbers. After the war, surplus LeMats filtered west into the hands of bounty hunters and ex-soldiers. Anyone who'd seen one fired knew how cruel it could be. The shotgun barrel turned tight quarters into pure chaos. Hollywood rarely touches the LeMat because it looks almost unreal, 9 chambers around a smoothbore cannon. But that surreal design was what made it feared. You never knew what was coming next, a bullet or a blast. Compared to lighter Colts and Remingtons, the LeMat was a brute. Slow to reload, yes, but unmatched for shock value. In an ambush or barroom fight, just seeing that twin-barreled muzzle pointed your way was enough to make a man rethink his choices. The LeMat proved one thing about the frontier. Fear didn't always come from the fastest gun, sometimes it came from the strangest one. Quick question before we move on. If you'd lived in the Old West, would you rather carry something wild and overbuilt like the LeMat, or keep it simple with a dependable 6-shooter? Drop your choice below. I'm curious which side most of you would have stood on. Number 7. The Remington 1858 New Army Revolver. In a world where guns could jam, misfire, or fall apart under pressure, one revolver earned a reputation for never letting its owner down. The Remington 1858 New Army. Introduced during the American Civil War, the Remington was a 6-shot, .44 caliber single-action revolver built around a solid steel frame, unlike the open-top Colts of its time. That made it tougher, heavier, and far more reliable in the dirt and dust of the frontier. Its biggest advantage was engineering. The Remington cylinder could be swapped out in seconds, allowing a shooter to carry preloaded cylinders instead of fumbling with loose powder and caps. In a fight, that meant one man could fire a dozen shots while his opponent was still reloading. Lawmen, soldiers, and gunfighters all trusted it. Wild Bill Hickok famously carried a pair of ivory-handled Remingtons long after newer revolvers hit the market, saying he liked the way they balanced and the way they never failed. Weighing nearly 3 pounds loaded, the Remington had a slower draw than lighter pistols, but it hit hard and shot straight. Its robust design could handle rough treatment, from Union cavalry charges to cattle drives and saloon fights. By the 1870s, cartridge conversions made it even more deadly. A converted Remington could fire metallic rounds, giving it faster reloads and cleaner shots. Many gunmen preferred them over early Peacemakers simply because they lasted longer. Hollywood tends to glorify the Colt as the symbol of the Old West, but on the real frontier, many professionals swore by the Remington. It was a workhorse, reliable, intimidating, and built like iron. Because when your life depended on 6 shots, fear didn't come from what looked good on screen. It came from what never misfired. Number 6. The Colt Dragoon and Colt Walker revolvers. Before the Peacemaker became the legend of the frontier, there were 2 revolvers that terrified anyone who stood in front of them: the Colt Walker and the Colt Dragoon. Born from the battlefields of the Mexican-American War in the late 1840s, these were the hand cannons of their day. The original Colt Walker, designed in 1847 with Texas Ranger Captain Samuel Walker, was a .44 caliber, 6-shot revolver that fired a 141 grain ball with nearly the power of a carbine rifle. It was so powerful that the recoil could break a man's wrist if he wasn't careful. And sometimes the cylinders exploded under too much powder. Each Walker weighed over 4.5 pounds unloaded and stretched nearly 16 inches long. It was less a sidearm and more a small artillery piece. The later Colt Dragoon models refined the design, slightly smaller, a bit safer, but still brutally heavy. Both guns were meant for horseback use, often carried in pommel holsters instead of on the belt. Soldiers, Texas Rangers, and Scouts used them to deadly effect. Samuel Walker himself called it a perfect weapon, if a man is strong enough to carry it. Outlaws who faced it knew one thing: if the first shot didn't kill, the second would. By the 1850s, the Dragoon had replaced the Walker as the go-to heavy revolver of the frontier. It wasn't elegant or fast to reload, but its stopping power was unmatched. You didn't need precision, just aim center mass and squeeze. Hollywood rarely shows the Walker or Dragoon because they're too ungainly for screen duels. But in real life, they were the most intimidating pistols a man could own. Loud, smoky, and devastating. When a Colt Dragoon roared across the plains, everyone nearby took cover. Because in the Old West, fear didn't always come from accuracy. Sometimes it came from sheer earth-shaking force. Number 5. The sawed-off double-barrel shotgun. If there was one sound that could freeze a man in his tracks, it was the click of a double-barrel shotgun breaking open. And when the barrels were cut short, that sound meant trouble was close. Known as the coach gun, the sawed-off shotgun was the street sweeper of the frontier, a weapon so feared that lawmen, guards, and outlaws all carried it for the same reason. It ended fights fast. Stagecoach companies like Wells Fargo and Company issued them to their guards, the shotgun messengers who rode up front beside the driver. With barrels trimmed down to about 18 to 20 inches, the gun could clear both barrels in a single heartbeat, firing a cloud of buckshot or lead slugs that shredded anything within 20 yards. Most were 10 or 12 gauge black powder side-by-side shotguns, often built by Parker, Greener, or converted from hunting pieces. A full-length version might hit targets out to 60 yards. A sawed-off one traded range for spread, turning accuracy into pure intimidation. Each barrel was cocked by an external hammer, giving a trained guard 2 instant shots before needing to reload. Stagecoach robbers like Black Bart and the Dalton Gang knew what those barrels meant. At close distance, a single blast could take down horse and rider together. Even a miss could blind or cripple from the spray of shot and smoke. Because of its raw destructive power, towns from Tombstone to Dodge City began passing ordinances limiting barrel length and public carry. But the fear stuck. The sight of twin muzzles meant you were out of time. Hollywood turned the coach gun into an outlaw's trademark, but on the real frontier, it was an equalizer. Loaded with powder and grit, it protected gold shipments, ranches, and railroad payrolls alike. When a Wells Fargo guard leveled that cut-down shotgun, nobody argued. Because in the Old West, a revolver might scare a man, but a coach gun made him surrender. And if you think the coach gun was bad, wait until you see what came next. The top 4 weapons weren't just feared, they changed the balance of power in the entire West. Let's get into it. Number 4. The Sharps Rifle. If the Derringer was feared up close, the Sharps rifle was feared from distances. So far, you'd never see the man who pulled the trigger. First produced in the 1850s by Christian Sharps, this single-shot breech-loading rifle earned its place in frontier legend through one simple quality: accuracy. In an age when most rifles were slow, unreliable muzzle loaders, the Sharps could fire faster, hit harder, and reach farther. The standard Sharps fired powerful cartridges like the 45-70 or 50-90, each capable of dropping a buffalo or a man well over 1,000 yards away. The action used a falling block design where a solid breech slid down to load a metallic cartridge. It was simple, tight, and incredibly strong, even in filthy battlefield conditions. During the Civil War, Sharps carbines became a favorite among Union cavalry and the elite Verdun's sharpshooters, who could hit targets with deadly precision. After the war, the gun found a new life on the plains. Professional buffalo hunters like Billy Dixon and Buffalo Bill Cody used long-barreled Sharps rifles to harvest entire herds. Dixon's legendary shot at Adobe Walls in 1874, striking a Comanche warrior from 1,538 yards away, remains one of the most famous rifle shots in American history. By the 1870s, the word Sharps became a verb. Men didn't just shoot, they sharpsed something. Outlaws crossing open ground knew that if a sharpsman had the high ground, there was no running. The heavy bullet could punch through wood, iron, and bone alike. Hollywood often downplays the rifle's presence because slow, deliberate shooting doesn't make for flashy action scenes. But on the real frontier, this gun was power at a distance. Silent, patient, absolute. You never heard the shot that killed you, and that's why the Sharps rifle wasn't just respected on the plains, it was feared. Number 3, the Henry rifle, 1860. Before the Winchester won the West, another rifle laid the foundation and terrified anyone unlucky enough to face it. It was the Henry rifle of 1860, the first truly successful lever-action repeating rifle, and it changed what firepower meant forever. Designed by Benjamin Tyler Henry and produced by the New Haven Arms Company, the Henry used a revolutionary 44 rimfire cartridge and a tubular magazine that held 15 rounds, plus one in the chamber. In an era when most rifles fired once and took nearly half a minute to reload, the Henry could unleash 16 shots in under a minute without breaking aim. Each rifle weighed around 9 pounds with a brass frame and a smooth lever that allowed fast, fluid firing. Soldiers and settlers alike called it that damned Yankee rifle you load on Sunday and shoot all week. Confederate troops feared it because one man armed with a Henry could hold off an entire squad armed with muskets. The Henry first saw combat during the Civil War, carried by Union soldiers in units like the 7th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. After the war, it traveled west with pioneers, scouts, and lawmen who valued its unmatched rate of fire. Native warriors and outlaws also acquired them through trade and theft, using the rifle's speed to devastating effect. But the Henry wasn't perfect. Its rimfire ammunition was fragile, and the open magazine tube collected dust easily on the trail. That led to the improved Winchester 1866, which refined the Henry's design, but never replaced its legend. Hollywood often skips over the Henry, jumping straight to the Winchester, but in the real West, this was the rifle that first made men rethink combat entirely. Because when one shooter could fire 16 times before you even reloaded once, fear wasn't just about who was faster, it was about who had the Henry. Number 2, the Winchester Model, 1873, the gun that won the West. If one weapon came to symbolize the entire frontier, it was the Winchester Model 1873, the rifle that every outlaw, lawman, and pioneer knew by name. To carry one meant authority, security, and for anyone on the wrong end, pure fear. Built on the success of the earlier Henry and Winchester 1866, the Model 1873 was the perfected frontier rifle. It used the new 4440 centerfire cartridge, a round powerful enough for close-range defense, yet light enough to feed through its 15-round tubular magazine. That same cartridge could also be fired in matching Colt revolvers, giving gunmen a single ammunition type for both rifle and pistol, a major advantage on the trail. The 1873 was rugged, fast, and accurate out to nearly 300 yards. With its smooth lever action and sturdy iron frame, it became the most common repeating rifle of the late 19th century. Winchester advertisements proudly called it the gun that won the West, and for once, the slogan wasn't far from the truth. It was carried by everyone, lawmen, settlers, ranchers, railroad guards, and outlaws alike. Billy the Kid, Butch Cassidy, and even Buffalo Bill Cody all owned one. The simple sound of that lever clacking forward was often enough to make men back down. In a region where distances were vast and law was scarce, the Winchester was peacekeeper and predator rolled into one. Production ran for decades, with more than 720,000 rifles built by 1919. Some were nickel-plated showpieces, others scarred and rusted from years of hard riding. But every one of them could spit 15 bullets faster than most men could think. Hollywood has made the Winchester 1873 the hero's gun, but on the real frontier, it wasn't romance. It was survival. Because when a Winchester spoke, the argument was over before it began. Number 1. The Colt Single Action Army. Peacemaker, 1873. If one weapon defined the Wild West in life, legend, and fear, it was the Colt Single Action Army, better known as the Peacemaker. Introduced in 1873, this revolver became the sidearm of soldiers, sheriffs, and gunslingers across the frontier. Chambered in .45 Colt, it packed serious stopping power in a 6-shot cylinder and could withstand the dust, grit, and recoil of the harshest country. Weighing about 2.3 pounds with a 7.5-inch barrel, it balanced perfectly in the hand and pointed naturally. A design so precise that over 150 years later, it's still being made. Issued first to the U.S. cavalry, the Peacemaker quickly spread to every corner of the frontier. Lawmen like Bat Masterson, Pat Garrett, and Wyatt Earp trusted it, while outlaws such as Jesse James and Billy the Kid carried their own versions. Its reliability and deadly precision made it the great equalizer of the 1870s. A skilled shooter could fire all 6 rounds in under 4 seconds and reload in half the time of older percussion revolvers. The solid frame, metallic cartridges, and crisp trigger gave it an edge no earlier pistol could match. In an era where justice often came from the muzzle of a gun, the Colt's cold click became a language everyone understood. Hollywood turned the Peacemaker into a hero's weapon, polished, noble, and righteous. But on the real frontier, it was feared because it worked. Every lawman knew that drawing second against a Colt Single Action Army usually meant drawing last. The Peacemaker wasn't just a revolver. It was the heartbeat of the Wild West, the sound of authority, vengeance, and survival, all in one pull of the trigger. From tiny pocket pistols to thundering rifles, every weapon on this list earned its reputation the hard way. Through blood, survival, and the stories left behind. The Wild West wasn't ruled by legends or duels at high noon. It was shaped by practicality, firepower, and fear, the quiet kind that made men think twice before drawing, and towns locked their doors at sundown. These weren't props or symbols. They were the tools that built an unforgiving world, and they remind us that the line between hero and outlaw was often just 6 rounds wide. If you've enjoyed uncovering the real weapons that defined the American frontier, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. The myths make great movies, but the truth, that's far more dangerous.